Welcome to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo, here to help you smash through your self-doubt to self-confidence. Today, I have a very special guest from the other side of the world from me, Emily. Welcome, Emily.
Hi, Johnny. It's nice to be here.
It's great to have you. And I think you're actually the first Australian I've spoken to on the podcast. So not only are you the first Australian, but I'm really privileged to have the value you're going to give today. So thanks so much for joining.
Well, I'm privileged to be the first Aussie on the podcast and to be on your podcast. So I'm excited for today.
Brilliant. Cool. So Emily will give a quick introduction into herself in a minute, but I'm just going to give a quick overview of Emily and what Emily's going to offer. And we're going to be talking about confidence and empowerment today. So Emily is a graduate of architectural design mindset, and she is an empowerment coach, business consultant, social media figure, podcaster, and six-figure business owner. They're just a few titles that describe Emily. So after dedicating 5 years of studying and completing her bachelor's in architectural design, it became clear to Emily that her direction in career was not really aligned to her true purpose. So this led her into pursuing network marketing, and then into her true purpose. So Emily's mission now is to truly show people the possibilities of what they can achieve in life and show it's really limitless. And the only thing stopping us from where we are to where we want to be is our mindset. So with that said, Emily, could you tell us a little bit more about your story and how you got to where you are today? Be great to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So as you said, originally I was studying architecture. So straight after high school, I went straight into university. I picked a degree that was sort of encouraged by my parents, encouraged by the school, something that's, viewed as quite stable and like a safe career path to follow. But I found that by the time I got to my master's, so I literally spent over 5 years studying this degree, I was actually going through a lot of mental health struggles, and it was all because of, the degree, right? I was working in an industry and I was studying in an industry that I just was not passionate about. It was draining me energetically. It was bringing me down. And so that was sort of when I started to take some time to seriously reflect on where it is I wanted to go and how it is I wanted to be feeling. And initially when I was at uni, I tapped into network marketing for a little while there. And what was great about that was that exposed me to the world of personal development, and also the world of entrepreneurship and being able to build an income online for yourself. And so through that, and through like finding personal development and realizing it was something that I was so passionate about, I started my own passion project, which was my own podcast as well. And then from there, I just realized that that's what was sort of lighting me up. That's where, I was wanting to put my energy. I would be hustling behind the scenes at work, like, building the podcast and doing the social media for it and spending like every spare minute I had around uni and work on that. So I decided that, what's the point being 22 years old and stuck in a job that you hate and continuing down that path for the next 20 or 30 years. And so I figured, now's the perfect time to step away and take a risk and try something else. So I knew I was passionate about the podcast and I knew I was passionate about entrepreneurship. So that's where I sort of decided to combine the two and dive into coaching and take my personal development journey and be able to start helping other people with theirs as well. So I literally dropped out of university middle of last year, and I was like, 90 days from now, I'm going to be self-employed. So I was hustling so hard behind the scenes of my 9-to-5 job, getting all the foundations set. And literally 90 days later, I handed in my letter of resignation. And as of 2021, I've been self-employed and never looked back. So that's a little bit about my journey.
That's awesome. Love that share. And I could actually just see the change in your physiology and your smile light up there. And you get really excited when you started talking about when you got into the personal growth and the network marketing, as opposed to when you were describing perhaps something that felt maybe slightly more conditioned from societal sort of expectations of doing a degree in that traditional route. But I mean, what kind of, I understand from you that you decided to take that leap of faith a little bit, and in terms of someone who might be listening to this, how important do you believe it is to align with what you really want, despite the fear that you might have?
I think it's so important, and the question that I kept on asking myself when I was going through that transition is, am I going to be happy being in the exact same place that I'm in now 1 year from now? And if I'm not going to be happy, being in that place 1 year from now, I'm sure as heck not going to be happy 10 years from now, right? It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And, if you are asking yourself that question and your answer is, no, I'm not going to be happy being in the exact same place, the exact same job, the exact same degree 1 year from now, then why stay there? I know it's scary to step away, and I know it's scary to take risks, but it's also scary, to look back in 12 months time and be in the exact same place. And in fact, you're probably going to be in a worse place, because if you're really unhappy where you are now, the chances are your mental health is going to start to go down the longer you stay in that position. So yes, there's a lot of fears that do come up when taking risks, but personally, I think the biggest risk is staying in a position that you're unhappy with and getting to the end of your life and being like, damn, I could have done so much more, or I wanted to do so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. Love what you said there. There were a couple of main things I sort of like wrote down there when you were talking, and one of them was the questions you were asking. And I think it's quite easy for a lot of us to go on autopilot through life, and we're conditioned with all these things we think we, inverted commas if you're listening, should do. But you started challenging that and the norm, and kind of like, is this really right for me? Do I really want to be here? I mean, what really feels right for me? What do I want to do? It sounds like that was an instrumental thing for kind of your change in life. And then the other thing was the looking at, in terms of pain and the fear in terms of the future and what's going to happen. And I don't know if you've ever been to a Tony Robbins UPW, but they have a Dickens process, and you actually do that, and you go in the future and you look at the pain of what's going to happen if you drag yourself through what's not right for you, rather than this instant, like, I don't want to have this fear now, so I'm going to put it off, but actually what's going to happen in the future. So it sounds like those are definitely a couple of things that really drew you to your path now. Would that be accurate to say?
100%. And that first point that you mentioned as well, when I was sort of going through that transition period, another question that I was asking myself is, who am I doing this for? Because, I had 6 months left to go on my master's degree, and I could have stayed and spent those 6 months getting that piece of paper that I wasn't going to be using anyway, but could stick it on the wall or whatever. But I asked myself, who am I getting this degree for? It wasn't for me. So who's it for? Well, it was for my boss, and it was for my parents, because it's what I thought they wanted for me, but it's not what I wanted for me. And when I came to the realization, that was when I first spoke to my first ever coach. I had just a 1 hour meeting with someone, and they asked me that question. They're like, who are you doing this for? And I realized in that moment that, yeah, if I was going to finish my degree, it sure as heck wasn't going to be for me. And what's the point in doing something if it's for anyone other than yourself? Because you should be prioritizing you, right? You shouldn't be basing your life decisions around other people, because, you are it is your life at the end of the day. It's not someone else's. So you need to make sure that you're making the decisions that are aligned with you, not others. So yeah, that definitely aligns what you said there.
Yeah, what a great coaching question. And this is why coaches are so powerful. Obviously going to be biased because I'm a coach and you're a coach, but I had an amazing coach that got me into where I am today, from me just wanting to write books. If you don't know if you know, but sorry, I just wanted to write books, and I was like, oh, this coach could help me. She's written books. And it got me into this whole coaching world and podcasting and then YouTube and stuff. But yeah, it's those powerful questions. So, and thank goodness you were asked that, and the questions you kept asking yourself. So that's fantastic, and love to hear that, and just like challenging. So if you're listening right now, remember to ask yourself the quality questions as well that we're talking about, and don't just settle for what you are conditioned to. That's when we can really challenge some of the autopilot mode we're on. So Emily, I kind of consider myself, obviously we're talking about you, but I consider myself quite like a driven individual who likes impacting people, like most of the coaches we know when they're networking. And for me, my shift was in my like mid-20s, and it was around like, hang on, I'm in a meeting somewhere and why am I in this meeting, this boring meeting, and it means nothing, to me, this information, just so I can pay the bills. And then it's like something clicked then. And obviously you mentioned obviously you're 22 when this started, and I know you're only 23 now, but you're in your early 20s and you're already challenging that, which is amazing, because I was probably like dressing up as all sorts, going out on nights out and being crazy when I was like 22, 23. Although it's funny sometimes, but just like, what for you shifted, if there was a one thing, what would you say shifted your belief in that life didn't have to be like that traditional way?
Well, there's one clear thing that comes to mind when you ask that question. And it was when I was working in my architecture job, working my 9 to 5, there was this a co-worker that was working in the job as well, and every single day he would come into work just miserable, and I'd be watching that over and over again, and it was becoming clear to me that you can really get stuck in these negative sort of mindsets because of the environments that you're in. And we were having a chat one day, and I actually wasn't aware that when you're working full time, because I had just come out of study, right? So I wasn't aware that when you're working full time in a 9 to 5 job, you only get like 2 weeks off in an entire year. And I was chatting to him that day, and he was so excited about getting his 2 weeks off in the year. And I was like, 2 weeks off out of 52 weeks in a year? I am not signing up for this shit. So that like kind of shocked me. And I was like, no, I'm not going to be about that. Like, I want to have more than just 14 days off in a year. I want to have like more freedom and more control of my time and my life. Like, that just felt so restricted to me. And so that's what really got me thinking about, what else could become possible. And I had sort of, had my eyes opened a little bit to what can become possible when you are, taking control of your life, becoming an entrepreneur, creating your own business, like working on your own terms, through what I had seen in network marketing. And I guess that's what started to shift the belief for me that I could have more. And I wasn't willing to settle for 2 weeks off in an entire year. So that's when I went to the drawing board and really started to come up with my plan of how I could create more for me and more freedom and flexibility to me. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong working with a 9 to 5 job. It's just not what I wanted. And I just personally wanted more freedom than that. And so that's what, sort of shifted me to looking for where there was evidence of where there could be more and how there could be more.
And yeah, absolutely. And I love how you went to the drawing board, made a plan and everything like that. But yeah, I guess kind of like most, very driven, successful people like yourself that I know, have this very low threshold for like pain or not settling, basically. And unfortunately, I think there's quite a lot of people who will like increase that threshold and be like, no, this is acceptable. I don't like this, but I'm going to allow myself to be more and more miserable until the point it's unbearable. But that's just a key point I want to emphasize to the listener, that you don't have to get super low. Just if it's not serving you, if it's not in alignment, if it's not empowering you to enjoy your life, don't settle for it. Start asking yourself the questions. Listen to some of the steps Emily just shared, like questioning what's out there, finding, network marketing. It might not be network marketing for you, but actually going and discovering something you like, which obviously you went on to much more and huge things after network marketing. But just, challenging that and then thinking about, okay, what is going to be right for me? So absolutely love that. And it feels like you had a change in belief, a really strong change in belief as well, in terms of what's possible, and beliefs often what hold us back. So I'm really glad to hear that. So thanks for sharing that one. So my next question is about investing in yourself. And I'm very strong about this as well, because I feel like sometimes we're held back because we see something as a cost rather than an investment. And I've been in situations where I didn't have the money, but like I'll go into my overdraft, I'll find somewhere because I see it's an investment in myself. Now, I know you have invested an awful lot in yourself and it's definitely coming back to you. What would you say about the importance of investing in yourself?
Oh, I think it's the best thing that you can do, right? Like you can go and put your money into material objects, but those material objects aren't necessarily going to help you grow in many ways, maybe in some ways, but not in as much as, say, for example, investing in a coach or investing in some sort of a course or, investing into a project that you feel passionate about. My first major investment was when I was leaving my degree and starting my business. I had saved up $10,000 in my bank account for when I quit my job. I was like, this is my little security blanket. I'm going to have, enough time to be able to live off this and be able to get my business up and running and making an income for myself. Because when I actually resigned from my job, I wasn't actually making much money through my business at that point at all, right? So I had that security blanket for myself. And then I came across a coach who could support me in building my business. And surprise, surprise, that course cost about $10,000. So as I'm stepping away from, my stable income, I am also investing my entire life savings as a 22-year-old into a coach. And so my bank account went down to zero. But the reason why I made that investment, the reason why I took that risk is because I knew it was an investment. Right. And what an investment is something that's going to bring back a return for you. So I saw more value in dropping my bank account down to $0 so then I could gain the knowledge, gain the resources, gain the support to be able to make that $10,000 back in far less time than what it took me to save it up. So I am such a huge believer in investing in yourself. I still invest every single month into my own personal growth because the way I view it is my income is only going to grow as quickly as I'm growing myself. If I'm not growing myself, my income isn't going to be able to grow past the point that it's at either. So you've really got to look at it in that way as well. So yeah, I'm such a big supporter in investing in yourself, whether it be in something that's going to help you grow a business or even just help you grow you, because, the better quality your life is going to be when you're able to work through whatever mindset blocks are in the way, whatever emotional struggles you're going through. And that itself is to be able to overcome those sorts of struggles is going to have a massive return on the quality of life that you're going to be living also. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a financial return in order for your investment to pay off, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally agree. And actually, I believe it does sort of return, not maybe immediately in finance, because the more invested into yourself, the more value you're going to be able to give to the world. And often what I see in business is those who give a lot of value get, a lot of returns rather than going out and trying to be greedy. Those are like really serving, giving value, and that comes from investing themselves. It's sometimes scary and we see the numbers, but I think one of the most alive I've ever felt was when I had like minimal left, and I did similar with my life savings. So it's like great to, it's great to connect that we both kind of just gone, life savings, let's invest it into different ways.
Honestly.
Yeah, it's crazy. But like, my life savings was there, and like, I don't know if my parents will ever listen to this, but like, to be honest, but it was kind of intended what I'd saved up for a house or like a home. It's like, but this is just my view. We all have different views. It's like, what is a house or flat going to do for my own growth? Not a lot, but as I grow, I give a lot of value to other people, and it's returned to me, and making that back. So I love what you said as well. Like investing constantly, you can only offer as you're growing as well. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. I'm glad we've got such similar values in that area.
Yeah. And I'm all about delayed gratification as well, because I think a big mistake that a lot of people make, I'm going to speak specifically about like entrepreneurs, is when you start to have a big cash flow coming in, you think, oh, I'm going to buy all the fancy things or the fancy bags or the fancy cars, everything to make me look rich. And I think that's the biggest mistake that you can make, especially in your first year of entrepreneurship. You should really be focusing on delayed gratification. Personally, for me, every cent that I'm making through my business, that goes back into my business. I'm not worried about creating a savings account or saving for my first home or buying a flashy car at this point in time, because that's not what matters, right? Like what comes into my business, I want to put back into my business, whether it be through team members, whether it be through coaches, like whatever it's going to be, because that's what's going to help me grow. And it's about scaling my income further before I start getting myself all those material things, because my number one priority is about reinvesting at this stage. So yeah, I don't even have savings account account at the moment. And like, you know, I just, everything that comes in, I send it back out, because in my mind, that's going to bring it back in tenfold. So it's better spent there than rather spent on your, like, you know, a fancy car or just sitting in a bank account going nowhere, right?
Yeah, love it. No, and yeah, and what growth you've had, like continue to see the podcast growing, and you know all the work you're doing with your groups and everything like that. So it's really inspirational, and such, if I may say so, such extreme wisdom, you know, in your earlier 20s. Definitely didn't have that kind of wisdom when I was 23. So
I did my partying early. I think I was done with my clubbing phase by like 21. I tapped out.
Not sure I'm done by yet, but but yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So my next question really is, and it's been a great conversation so far, amazing. So thank you. So someone really wants to change something in their life, but they just don't believe in themselves. What advice would you give them?
And like, this is something that everyone struggles with, right? Like, self-belief is one of the most challenging things that there really is. I mean, I have my own self-belief struggles from time to time, because as you're constantly up leveling, you know, you're constantly faced with new challenges. So, you know, it's not something that's ever going to go away. But if you are sitting there and you are struggling to believe in yourself to be able to take those steps towards doing the things you want to be doing, first piece of advice I'd give you is to just start taking the action. You don't need to have self-belief in order to take action, but through taking action, your self-belief is actually going to start building. Right now, you might not believe in yourself because you've never done that thing before, right? It's a brand new thing. And generally, that's when we lack the belief in ourselves the most, is when, you know, we're stepping up to a new level, or we're stepping away from what we're familiar with. And then there's all that uncertainty because you've never been there before. So my advice for you is to start taking the action. Don't wait to have the belief in yourself before you do it, because taking action is actually going to build belief. And whilst you're taking this action, start working through these limiting beliefs. Now, you can do this on your own. You don't need to go spend thousands of dollars on a coach in order to be able to work on your own self-belief. It's as simple as coming down, sitting with it, acknowledging with it, be like, looking at it in the eye and asking, okay, this is how I feel, right? Right now, I lack my belief in myself in this area. Well, why do you lack the belief there? Identify the why and where this has come from, and then start to flip it, right? Start to look at how you want to feel, what you want to believe, where you want to go, and start reinforcing that and telling yourself why and how you can start to step in that as well. So you can really go through this process on your own, or you can ask someone for support with it. I mean, I'm sure Johnny's done plenty of episodes on how to build self-belief anyway. So even tapping into something like this, right, that's going to help you so much. But the best thing that you can be doing is taking the action, not holding yourself back from doing the things you want to be doing because you don't believe that you can do them. Just start doing them anyway, and your confidence in yourself is going to build through taking action.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'm glad you touched on the kind of reflection and understanding these beliefs a little bit as well alongside this. But yeah, I would absolutely say the same in terms of taking the actions, because if you start talking to yourself, trying to change your beliefs, and you're not taking action, then the beliefs start, you know, going negative again and saying, see, you can't do it, because you're not actually doing anything. But doing the two in parallel, so powerful. But emphasis, like you said, on taking the action, that's the most important thing. And the advice I give is often like, okay, sometimes something's too big a jump. Like, let's use public speaking, the huge fear. And I was terrified to say my name in a meeting at one point. Now I just don't shut up. But like, whatever I'm talking in. But it's, you know, I'd like build up, speak to like a few people in a smaller meeting. This was back in the corporate world, and then into a larger group, and then to like leadership. But actually you'd break it down, and then you build momentum, and therefore you get confidence. Sometimes we think, I've got to like do this massive challenge, but actually taking little steps, creating the momentum will create the confidence. But there's a misconception, I feel, and you might come across this as well, that you'll see these big charismatic people out there, and you think, oh, they got no fears, that's easy for them. No, everyone has fears. Thank you for sharing. Like you have, you know, as you grow, you said, you sometimes have the self-belief pops up now and then. I get that from time to time, but rarely, because as much as I used to, because the way I train myself. through like crazy stuff like jumping on the trampoline and shouting nice, great stuff at myself, which is in parallel to taking action. So I love what you touched on there. So thank you.
Fears don't go away. You just get better at managing them, in all honesty, right? And like you said, like, you know, jump on a trampoline and shout positive things to yourself. Like, you're going to find your own ways of really working through those limiting beliefs as they come up. But yeah, so I've just sort of found that putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and constantly challenging your beliefs has really worked for me from, I mean, I guess from since a young age. But yeah, you can definitely look at people who are further ahead of you in your journey and think, oh, they don't have any beliefs, they're limitless, like all of that. But no, they definitely still will have their own challenges. And sometimes they probably would even have, I dare say, bigger challenges than what we go through, right? Because they're, you know, up leveled more times than us, which means the challenges they're going to be facing are at a new height to where we've been before. But it's just in how you learn to manage these things as they do arise. It's like really the key to working through them as you continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Dean Graziosi, who's one of the best marketers, if not the best marketers I've ever come across, he runs events at like Tony Robbins events and things like that. I remember him going, oh, I was really nervous about coming on today. I was like really worried, am I going to do a good job? I'm like, this guy's been out on stage how many times? And look at the energy and charisma and the value he gives. It's just, that goes to show that even these kind of people, I remember Jennifer Lopez admitting she felt like an imposter when she won a Oscar. I'm doing a bit of rhyming now accidentally, but like, it just goes to show like there are these people who are really high profile. So yeah, like you said, the fear never goes away. It's just about how you manage it. So I appreciate you sharing that as well, and you know, being open about that.
Exactly. And practice builds confidence as well, because how you were saying before that public speaking is something that you used to struggle with, and clearly, you know, you do so much better with it now because you've had so much practice. I mean, for me, I started public speaking from such a young age, like all during primary school and high school. Like I was constantly putting myself, you know, into the deep end with these sorts of public speaking competitions. And yeah, I would be like shitting myself before I go on stage. I'd have like butterflies in my stomach that were making me want to throw up. But as the years went by and the more I practiced, the more comfortable I started to become with these settings. So, you know, as we've been saying, it's just practice and doing the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing Joseph teaches that I picked up on so much of teaching is what speeds it up is praising yourself, because it teaches your nervous system that you're doing something well. And when you like go through something, you're struggling and being like, oh, I did rubbish then. Oh, I was a bit better. Oh, I was all right. We're our worst critics, honestly. But when we praise ourselves, he does a simple thing, and I teach my clients to do this. It's like, it's crazy as it sounds. It's like, good job, Johnny. You did a good podcast today. Or you did an amazing podcast today. Or you just like, great job, Johnny. You went for a run. Well done, Johnny. You got up on time, which didn't happen in the last 2 days, but I still praise myself for getting up. But, you know, just praising yourself as well, that practice. So it's great to hear you did it from such a young age as well. And yeah,
I think that praise is something that, like, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that so many people just forget to do, right? Like we'll congratulate people around us, we'll celebrate and like praise people around us for stepping outside their comfort zone and doing new things, but then we forget to do it for ourselves. And I think what you said about praising yourself for doing a podcast, like for one day and something like that, like for the small things, really do celebrate them. That's something that I'm trying to practice more as well, because yeah, it'll help you a lot when it comes to confidence also, because you're actually positively reinforcing yourself and, you know, congratulating yourself for doing the thing that maybe you were scared of doing in the first place. So I think that's a good point you brought up there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you said something similar to how I experienced. Nothing builds your confidence than doing the things you fear. Like when you've done it, like, wow. But then praising yourself, patting on the back, I'm going to do it again. And little trick I do is put an alarm on my phone every hour or two, depending what time it is. And it's just like, remember to praise yourself, because we forget to schedule it in. So that's just something that works for me. So like that. So my final question, really, well, the second last question before kind of we stop, is what would you say about surrounding yourself with how important is it to surround yourself with the right people?
Yeah, very important. this is something that I sort of started to become aware of when I first started tapping into personal development, is not even just the people, but like the environment that you surround yourself by, the music that you're listening to, the media that you're consuming online. Like all of these things are so important, because if you're wanting to feel confident, feel empowered, feel positive, but you're surrounded by people that are trying to shrink you down, telling you you can't, telling you that your goals and your dreams are just like so out of this world that you'll never be able to achieve them because they've never been able to even imagine something like that, or the environment that you're in is limiting you because it's, you know, having a negative impact on your mindset and the people in that environment, like that's going to hold you back from doing the things that you want to be doing and getting to the places that you want to be getting to. So I suggest that if you have a goal that seems big and scary and outside of the comfort zone that you're in right now, make sure that the people that you're surrounding yourself by also have big goals, also, you know, not shrinking themselves down into a box that they're outgrown. Make sure that the things that you're consuming online are positive, right? Like if you can't physically get people around you to, you know, see the same visions that you see and dream as big as you see, as big as you dream, then what I suggest you do is start connecting with people online. Grow an online network. It doesn't even need to be an in-person network, but you need to surround yourself by people who can dream bigger, because that's going to help you expand even further and build your own confidence. The longer that you surround yourself by people who have limited mindsets and people that have negative mindsets, the more that's going to squish you down and prevent you to growing into your full potential. And I'm lucky that I've always been surrounded by such supportive people. And I know there's people who unfortunately don't necessarily have that same network directly around them. So if this is you, then go online, get resourceful, go to in-person networking events, start making friends with people who align with the vision that you are creating for yourself, and watch how quickly you are going to grow. And one example I always like to think of with this is what I actually tell my little brother, because he's really heavily into his basketball and wants to, you know, be up there one day, like doing it professionally. And one thing I always tell him is make sure that you can be like the smallest fish in the pond. Because if you are like the worst player on the team, then that is the biggest opportunity for growth, because that means every single person around you has something that you can learn from them, right? If you're the best player on a team, then you're actually limiting yourself, right? You need to put yourself outside of the comfort zone and allow yourself to become the smallest fish in the pond again, because that's going to accelerate your growth so much more than just sort of like staying in that place that you've sort of outgrown, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That made me like think of some of my networks and, you know, some great people you're with, but then you're kind of sometimes working so hard on yourself, and then yeah, sometimes the standard, it's not that they're not putting no effort in, but it's just sometimes perhaps not, you're not being pushed as much. So absolutely love that. And I would say also an important point about like when you talk about the people you're surrounded with, I'd say I've been fortunate in life to not really have any like super toxic people in my life. I mean, I kind of from a young age been able to see like if someone was really, you know, nasty person, and nasty people would just hurt themselves, and that, you know, and the beliefs that they've had onto them. But like I've not had necessarily toxic people, but I have had people, you know, typically, and again, like there's nothing wrong with 9 to 5. If you love your 9 to 5 job and corporate, I'm so happy for you. I'm so pleased for you. But I have had people who are just kind of wanting to go through life, you know, get to retirement age, buy a house, and maybe, and I'm a bit more ambitious, want to grow this big coaching business, be a big bestseller, grow my podcast constantly, impact on lives. And actually, those people around me weren't negative, weren't like necessarily bringing me down or saying that's rubbish or what are you doing and stuff like that. But they, you know, they're just projecting their own beliefs, like not necessarily at you, but that information's always going into your brain. So if you're, even if they're just being a little bit negative and, you know, watching the news around you, for example, that's always going into your mind. And I remember Jim Rohn saying, be the guard to your mind, because you've got to be very careful about who you surround yourself with, what you're consuming on a regular basis. So that was just something I wanted to add on to what you said. So yeah, love that you didn't just talk about people, but the information you're consuming as well.
Yeah, that's something that everyone misses all the time, right? Like we actually spend more time scrolling on social media than sometimes we do talking to the people around us. So it's so important to make sure that the things you are consuming on your phone, make sure they're positive. Follow a couple of like, inspiring quote pages. Follow some pages that actually show you successful people in this world, right? Expose you to what can become possible for you, because when you can see evidence of other people doing the things that you want to be doing, that's going to install a new belief in you as well, that that's something that you're able to do. So yeah, just even making those little shifts online is such a powerful thing. And even the things that you're plugging into your ears, right? Like don't listen to negative music if you want to be feeling positive.
Yeah, music. I forgot you mentioned that as well. Yeah, listen to things like Happy or Unstoppable by Sia. I'm so confident. Just going out, it's like, oh no, I've got the words "I'm so confident today" running around in my head. That's going to be different from like listening to "Unbreak My Heart" or whatever, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know. There's quite a lot of sad songs, and there's some great songs. I'm not criticizing them, but just those lyrics, if they keep going around in your head, become the information your subconscious is driving from. So yeah, thanks for mentioning music as well. I think that's one I haven't talked about for a while actually. So great value. So Emily, it's been a wonderful conversation. Are there any final points or any final last point that you'd like to make?
I'd probably just say, like, whatever it is you want to do that you've been holding yourself back from doing, just start. Just start, because it's crazy, because it's approaching in December. It'll be 1 year that I've been, self-employed. And I literally think back to the start of this year when I was stepping away from my job and I was visualizing where I wanted to be. And to literally be at that place that I was visualizing is just so insane. And that is why I want to say to you guys, whatever it is you want to do, visualize it, get crystal clear on where it is you want to be, and just take the damn action. Stop holding yourself back, because it is so much brighter on the other side when you can look past those fears, just do the thing, and allow yourself to grow into your full potential.
Yeah, love that, the visualization and the momentum. And we overthink too much. So sometimes when I'm just overthinking, it's like, just do something. And it's like, so yeah, just taking the action and being really clear on your outcome. Not I want to lose weight, like I want to lose this amount of stone by that date, for example. Yeah, so love that, being crystal clear. So thank you, Emily, love that. So there's so much value you can give, and we could go on talking forever. So we've got to wrap it up here, but where can people find you?
Well, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm Empower with M on all platforms. So if you want to tune into the Empower with M podcast, just chuck that into your search bar and it should pop up on whatever streaming platform you like listening to. And come join me on Instagram. That's where all the fun goes down. Again, it's just Empower with M. So I'll link you anyway, Johnny, and you can put those links wherever you want to put them.
Yeah, of course. It'll be in the description so people can find you on those platforms. So thanks once again for coming on the show, Emily. Appreciate you.
No worries. It's been such a blast. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So that concludes today's episode. And don't forget to smash through your self-doubt and boost your self-confidence. And I'll see you in the next episode.